This is Community Radio Networks. It is the 17th of June, a lovely Monday morning to all of you as we get this week started. Let's get you all the information that you need to take on this Monday today. And we'll start with the world news. This is Community Radio Networks, the world news read by Shabnam Madgil. At least 19 Jordanian and Iranian pilgrims have died while on the Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia. It is more than 1.5 million Muslims that braved extreme heat to reach Mount Arafat for the high point of the annual Hajj pilgrimage, praying for hours, especially for Palestinians in conflict-ridden Gaza. 40,000 Muslims marked the Eid at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, less than half of last year's figures. More than 40,000 performed Eid al-Adha prayers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dissolved the six-member war cabinet in a widely expected move that came after the departure from the government of the centrist former General Benny Gantz. The Israeli military has announced a limited tactical pause in fighting in a portion of Gaza until further notice, and this daily pause from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. local time is scheduled to occur along a 7.4-mile-long road in Rafah to better facilitate the flow of aid trucks from Israel's main crossing to Gaza's north-south highway. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was critical of these plans announced by his military to hold 11-hour pauses in fighting along a main road into Gaza to facilitate getting aid into the bomb-stricken area. The health ministry in Gaza has said that at least 37,337 people have been killed in the territory during more than 8 months of fighting between Israel and Hamas. While the United Nations welcomed Israel's announced tactical pause along the southern Gaza aid corridor, it said more concrete measures are needed to facilitate aid entry for a depleted population. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has called Gaza the most dangerous place in the world for aid workers, and since the war began, 193 colleagues have been killed there, the highest death toll in UN history. Israel has destroyed more than half of the buildings in Gaza in its relentless bombing of all structures. And several attacks coupled with heavy artillery strikes took place across the Gaza Strip from the northern city to Rafah city last night. In a holiday message, President Biden has called for the implementation of a ceasefire plan he outlined last month, saying it was the best way to end the violence in Gaza and to help civilians suffering the horrors of the war between Hamas and Israel. Graduates of Stanford University walked out of their commencement ceremony yesterday in protest for Palestine. And Doug Emhoff, the husband of Vice President Kamala Harris and the first Jewish person to serve as the spouse of a nationally elected U.S. leader, will deliver remarks at the groundbreaking of the memorial to victims of the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. U.S. forces launched successful attacks late this week on Houthi radars that helped facilitate the Iranian-backed group's ongoing assaults on ships in the Red Sea. And at least 2 bystanders were fatally shot at a Juneteenth celebration in Texas, one of multiple incidents of gun violence around the country that marred the Father's Day weekend. An altercation between 2 groups of people exploded into gunfire at a free Juneteenth festival co-hosted by the city of Round Rock, and the event began at 5 p.m. and shots rang out at 10:50 p.m., roughly an hour before it was set to end. And 7 people were shot in unrelated incident in Massachusetts. 8th person was injured while running away. 2 of the victims in critical condition and others stable. The victims are from their late teens to 22 years old. A significant heat wave began roasting the central and southern United States yesterday, with temperatures in the 90s or higher, potentially breaking records in some areas, and millions of people across multiple states facing heat-related health risks. Things are about to heat up for much of the U.S. Dangerously hot temperatures are forecast for the Midwest and the Northeast this week, prompting health officials to urge people to make plans to stay safe. Evacuation orders remained in place as a brush fire in the Gorman area north of Los Angeles has grown to 14,625 acres. That post fire was burning near the southbound 5 freeway and Gorman Road. The blaze was reported shortly after noon on Saturday. This wildfire near Los Angeles, known as the Post Fire. And this summer is expected to break heat records in the U.S., and that could mean misery for migraine sufferers. Researchers at a conference currently underway in San Diego revealed a new study that links rising temperatures to migraine attacks. The first U.S. presidential debate between incumbent Joe Biden and Republican rival Donald Trump on the 27th of this month will include 2 commercial breaks, no props and muted microphones except when recognized to speak. It is the candidates that had agreed to face off in these 2 debates, including one this month that will be moderated by CNN anchors Jake Tapper and Dana Bash in Atlanta, while the other on the 10th of September will be hosted by ABC. President Biden's campaign targeting Republican challenger Donald Trump's felony convictions as part of a $15 million ad campaign ahead of the first presidential debate between both candidates on the 27th of this month. And this move marks a notable shift in Biden's approach to Trump's conviction after the president's initial reluctance to weigh in on the issue to avoid engaging with the Trump's legal woes. Joe Biden addressed a star-studded crowd at a Los Angeles fundraiser this weekend, imploring voters to elect me because Donald Trump will appoint 2 more judges who fly flags upside down, referring to Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito's recent flag flap. President Biden attended this fundraiser with guests that included Barack Obama, George Clooney, and Julia Roberts. Included a discussion between Biden and Obama, moderated by Jimmy Kimmel, raised $30 million. And Donald Trump told supporters that President Biden should be forced to take a cognitive test, but then confused the name of his own doctor who performed the test on him in 2018. First Lady Jill Biden discussed Hunter Biden's trial with NBC News during a campaign swing, the first time she has commented on his conviction after he was found guilty on 3 felony gun-related charges. She said the trial marked a tough week for the family, explaining that they had to relive the tough times. Still, she said she drew inspiration from Hunter Biden's conduct in recent days. The U.S. Supreme Court yesterday struck down a Trump-era federal ban on a gun accessory known as a bump stock. This modifies semi-automatic weapons to fire roughly 400 to 800 rounds per minute, a rate nearing that of automatic weapons. The Justice Department said that it will not prosecute Attorney General Merrick Garland after the House voted to hold him in contempt of Congress for defying subpoenas for audio recordings of President Biden's interview with the special counsel Robert Hur. A large excavator stretched on the top floor of the 3-story building where 17 people died in the 2018 mass shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, punching its first hole into the classroom where teacher Scott Beagle perished, saving students. Beginning a weeks-long demolition, this excavator made a whiny, wrenching noise as it broke off concrete from the building, now no longer needed as evidence in the shooter's trial, and some victims' family members stood 100 yards away holding up their cell phones to record that moment. Golf has a new hero. Bryson DeChambeau captured his second U.S. Open yesterday, holding off a back-nine charge from Rory McIlroy to tame a treacherous Pinehurst. In an epic battle, DeChambeau and McIlroy went to the 18th hole tied at 6 under. McIlroy up ahead missed a 4-foot putt for par, opening the door for DeChambeau, only it took some sorcery from DeChambeau to make it happen. The 18th hole at Pinehurst number 2 yesterday turned the 54th Golf League captain Byron DeChambeau into a U.S. Open champion again, and left Rory McIlroy still trying to end his nearly 10-year drought without a major championship victory after arguably the most heartbreaking near miss of his career. Basketball Hall of Famer Charles Barkley announced he would retire from television following the 24-25 NBA season, citing a looming deal that could see the critically acclaimed analysis show Inside the NBA depart TNT. The United States has advanced to the Super 8s of the T20 Cricket World Cup thanks to some help from Mother Nature. Officials called off Friday's match between the US and Ireland in Lauderhill, Florida due to an unplayable pitch following multiple days and finally delays there and finally a thunderstorm. And that decision means the Americans earned a valuable point and will advance out of Group A on 5 points. Severe storms have battered South Florida this week, causing a state of emergency to be declared after 2 feet feet of rain hit some areas. And the result also knocked out Pakistan out of the competition. Pakistan needed a US loss coupled with a victory over Ireland in their final match yesterday in order to have a shot to move on. The US will now face South Africa on Wednesday, and the West Indies and Scotland or England in the second round. It has already been a historic first World Cup for the US, having won 2 games, including a massive upset over Pakistan last week. And despite the loss to group leader India, the Americans were helped by the struggles of Pakistan, Canada, and Ireland. By advancing to the Super 8s, this guarantees the US will qualify for the 2026 T20 World Cup, which will be hosted by Sri Lanka and India. The preliminary stage of the ongoing 2024 T20 World Cup, which begins on Wednesday in the West Indies, ends next Monday with Group C matches in Trinidad and Gross Islet, has already set the fixture for the next round of the tournament, Super 8. 8 teams will battle it out for the 4 semi-final spots in the upcoming stage, which begins the day after tomorrow. And we do have the Tony Awards that were handed out last night. The Outsiders was named the best musical, while Merrily We Roll Along won the Tony for the best revival of a musical. Stereophonic was named best play, while Appropriate won the award for best revival of a play. Among the other noteworthy winners were Sarah Paulson, Daniel Radcliffe, and Jeremy Strong, all of whom took home their first Tonys. The performances at the ceremony included the cast of Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club, Hell's Kitchen, Illinois, and Merrily We Roll Along. Stereophonic Suffs, The Outsiders, The Who's Tommy, and Water for Elephants. Presenters included Utkarsh Ambudkar, Nate Burleson, Cynthia Erivo, Jess Tyler Ferguson, Josh Gad, Renee Elise Goldsberry, and Sean Hayes, along with Taraji Henson, Julianne Howe, Jennifer Hudson, Angelina Jolie, Nick Jonas, Idina Menzel, Ashley Park, Jim Parsons, Weldon Pierce, Ben Platt, Anthony Ramos, Andrew Reynolds, Solomon Thomas, Taylor Tomlinson, Pete Townsend, Tamara Tooney, Adrienne Warren, Patrick Wilson, and Jeffrey Wright. The Tonys are presented by the Broadway League and the American Theatre Wing, have been broadcast on CBS since 1978, and the nominees were selected by an independent committee of 44 theatre professionals appointed by the Tony Awards Administration Committee. The 77th Annual Tony Awards that took place at the Lincoln Center's David Koch Theatre in New York City, celebrating Broadway's biggest stars and productions. This star-studded ceremony saw Angelina Jolie and her daughter, and also Nick Jonas, Nicole Scherzinger. Season 2 of the House of Dragons, the epic Game of Thrones prequel series, has premiered on HBO and Max. The closed-door trial against Wall Street Journal reporter Ivan Gershkovich in Russia for alleged espionage is to begin on the 26th of this month, according to the regional court in the city of Yekaterinburg in the Ural Federal District. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has rejected Russian President Putin's conditions for peace negotiations with Ukraine as absurd. The final declaration of the Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland was approved by 80 of the 93 participating states at the close of this 2-day event yesterday. Countries that did not sign include 6 states from the G20 group of the world's most important economic powers: Brazil, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, India, and Indonesia. Brazil, India, South Africa, and the UAE are united with Russia in the so-called BRICS group and maintain a friendly relationship with Russia despite its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Leaders and top officials from more than 90 states meeting for this summit on peace in Ukraine agreed yesterday that Kyiv should enter dialogue with Russia on ending the war, while strongly supporting Ukraine's independence and territorial integrity. It is the Italian Premier Meloni, who dismissed a ceasefire offer for Ukraine by President Putin as propaganda as she wrapped up a Group of 7 summit that saw a deal reach for a $50 billion loan to Ukraine. And Kyiv will hold peace talks with Russia tomorrow if Moscow pulls out of all Ukrainian territory, said President Zelensky. Speaking at the close of this summit yesterday for peace in Switzerland, he said Russian President Putin would not end the war and had to be stopped in any way we can, whether by military or diplomatic diplomatic means. The two-day Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland should be quickly followed up with the second meeting, he said, towards the close of the proceedings. And about 500 demonstrators protested in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv under heavy security yesterday for the rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans people, the first Pride March since the Russian invasion of Ukraine over 2 years ago. Security forces stormed a detention center in southern Russia, killing inmates accused of links to the Islamic State group, who had taken 2 staff members hostage. And in the first 5 months of the year, German federal police registered 2,215 migrants arriving by irregular means using the so-called Belarus route. The people were caught at Germany's borders with Poland and the Czech Republic, and the numbers have steadily grown over the course of the year. While there were only 26 interceptions in January and 25 in February, the figure rose to 412 in March and 861 in April and 891 in May. Campaigning kicked off for France's snap parliamentary elections, with opinion polls suggesting the far-right National Rally will win, with President Emmanuel Macron's centrist alliance coming third behind a left-wing ticket. The royal family celebrated Father's Day with heartfelt messages and photos, including a tribute to King Charles and a first social media post from Prince George, Prince Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Prince William shared a throwback photo of himself playing with his father, King Charles, in a garden. And Kate Middleton took a new photo of Prince William and their children at the beach, expressing love and appreciation for him. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has said she's making good progress in her recovery from cancer and will make her first public appearance in months at the King's official birthday celebration on this week. Former Wimbledon, US Open, and Olympic champion Andy Murray is set to compete at the Paris Games for Britain. According to the British Olympic Association, the 37-year-old Scot, who won gold at the London 2012 and Rio 2016 Games, is the only player to win back-to-back Olympic titles in singles. He will be joined by debutants Jack Draper, Cameron Norrie, and Dan Evans in what could be his final tournament. Iran and Sweden have completed a prisoner swap, according to the government of Oman, which mediated the process. Citizens from both countries were flown to Muscat, the capital of the small state in the Persian Gulf. And Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson confirmed that 2 Swedish citizens were on their way home. And according to information from Tehran, Hamid N., who had been sentenced to life in prison in Sweden for mass executions of political prisoners in Iran at the end of 1980s, was released. The Iranian is 63 years old and was sentenced in Stockholm in 2022. The Taliban government officially announced its intention to send a delegation to the upcoming Doha meeting on the situation in Afghanistan. And it is the African National Congress and its largest rival, the white-led pro-business Democratic Alliance, that agreed to work together in South Africa's new government of national unity, a step change after 30 years of ANC rule. Once unthinkable, the accord has allowed President Cyril Ramaphosa to win a second term in office. He was re-elected by lawmakers with 283 votes. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Community Radio Networks. Tens of thousands of Muslim minority Rohingya feared to be caught in fighting in western Myanmar as a powerful armed ethnic group bears down on junta positions in a coastal town on the border with Bangladesh, which is reluctant to accept them. The Arakan army, which is fighting for autonomy for Myanmar's Rakhine region, said that residents of Mongdao town, inhabited primarily by the Rohingya, should leave ahead of a planned offensive on that settlement. Many Rohingya in and around Mongdao have not fled from the area despite the warnings, according to 2 refugees in Bangladesh who were able to contact people on the other side of the border. A new report suggests that the U.S. military targeted Filipinos with anti-vaccine messages on social media, part of a broader campaign to discourage people in the Philippines from adopting China's vaccine against COVID-19. The campaign in 2020 and 21, an effort to counter Chinese influence in the South China Sea, involved more than 300 accounts with tens of thousands of followers across platforms like X, Facebook, and Instagram. An Indian man suspected by the U.S. of involvement in an unsuccessful plot to kill a Sikh separatist on American soil has been extradited to the United States from the Czech Republic, according to the Federal Bureau of Prisons website. And it is Nikhil Gupta, who traveled to Prague from India last June and was arrested by Czech authorities. Last month, a Czech court rejected his petition to avoid being sent to the U.S., clearing the way for the Czech justice minister to extradite him. Sullivan, it is U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan visiting New Delhi at the invitation of his Indian counterpart Ajit Doval for a long-pending review of the India-U.S. initiative on critical and emerging technologies. Earlier this year, Jake Sullivan had called off planned visits to India twice because of the U.S. administration's preoccupation with the Israel-Hamas conflict. And it is Prime Minister Modi who went to Italy for the G7 summit. And it was not diplomatic meetings that dominated headlines back in India, but the relationship with his Italian counterpart. It was the Meloni team. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said in a video posted to social media, waving next to her fellow right-wing leader Modi there. Prime Minister Modi, then the duo have a close public friendship seen during the G20 summit in India last year and the COP28 climate talks in Dubai. U.S. National Security Advisor's two-day visit to India with a meeting with External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar, and we have a report on that by tomorrow. At least 15 passengers died and 60 others were injured after 3 coaches of the stationary Sealdah-bound Kanchenjunga Express derailed this morning after a goods train collided with it from the rear in West Bengal's Darjeeling district. The accident occurred at 8:30 in the morning and took place some 11 kilometers from New Jalpaiguri station in North Bengal, one of the largest and busiest stations in the Northeast Frontier Railway Zone in eastern and northeastern India. Officials fear that the toll could rise as multiple agencies of the state and center are working to rescue passengers who could still be trapped inside. Railway officials said this preliminary probe indicated that the loco pilot of the goods train disregarded the signal leading to that mishap. Meanwhile, a total of 19 trains have been cancelled so far on the new Jalpaiguri-Siliguri junction and Bagdogra and Alubari road routes in the wake of the major train accident. Prime Minister Modi was criticized by Rahul Gandhi for his track record on railway safety and attributed the rise in railway accidents over the last decade to mismanagement and negligence. The centre has handed over the probe into the June 9th attack on a bus carrying pilgrims in Riyasi to the NIA. And the decision was taken during a high-level meeting chaired by Union Home Minister Amit Shah yesterday. Prime Minister Modi is set to visit his Lok Sabha constituency, Varanasi, and that will happen tomorrow. This will be his first visit to the holy city since he became the Prime Minister of the country for the 3rd time. He is scheduled to hold an interaction with farmers and participate in the Ganga Aarti at the ancient Kashi Vishwanath temple. People familiar with the development have said senior officials from the centre, state governments, including Chief Minister Biren Singh, Army and other security forces, are expected to attend a meeting for Manipur. Union Home Minister Amit Shah chairing this meeting tonight to review the security situation in Manipur. A power outage at the Indira Gandhi International Airport in Delhi has thrown operations into disarray, affecting boarding and check-in facilities. And millions of people dependent on the Himalayan snowmelt for water face a very serious risk of shortages this year after one of the lowest rates of snowfall. This is a warning by the scientists, as snowmelt is the source of about a quarter of the total water flow of 12 major river basins that originate high in the region. And a wake-up call, therefore, for researchers, policymakers, and downstream communities. Snow and ice on the Himalayas are a crucial water source for around 240 million people in the mountainous region, as well as Nepal. The organization includes member countries Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, India, Myanmar, and Pakistan. Pakistan captain Babar Azam said the team's batting let them down at the 2020 World Cup and apologized to fans for failing to reach the Super 8 stage. The Green Shirts fell to the tournament's biggest upset when the US, a Tier 2 member of the game, beat the 2009 champions via super over. Defeat by India then left Babar's side with the mountain to climb to advance. Pakistan cricket is at its lowest point and needs to make radical changes, according to all-rounder Imad Wasim, after the team failed to get out of the group stage of the T20 World Cup. And President Zardari and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif called for promoting the spirit of sacrifice, brotherhood and selflessness as Pakistan celebrated Eid al-Azha. And the day started with special prayers held at mosques, eidgahs and grounds across the country for the progress and security of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you. I do have your financial news coming up in a separate segment right here on Community Radio Networks. Just give me a minute for that. Let's get you now all your financial news that you need to know today as we get this week started. That is right here on Community Radio Network. Stocks concluded last week on a hot streak as softer than expected inflation data fueled investor optimism around interest rate cuts. The Nasdaq Composite rose more than 3%, while the S&P 500 popped nearly 1.5%, ended the week above 5,400 for the first time ever. The Nasdaq and the S&P 500 both closed at record highs for 4 straight days, and meanwhile the Dow Jones Industrial Average slid more than 0.7%. Care Off, a company offering personalized subscription vitamin packs, says it'll be cancelling all subscriptions as of today and will no longer be accepting new orders. The news doesn't come completely out of the blue, as Care Off had previously disclosed in a New York Department of Labor filing that it planned to lay off all 143 employees by the 3rd of this month due to a funding loss. And now the company is being more specific and definitive about this closure, with a post yesterday on Instagram thanking customers and saying, "We unfortunately no longer have funding to operate in the way we have been." Founded in 2016 by Craig Albert and Akash Shah, Care Off asks customers to fill out a quiz about their lifestyle and values, which is used to recommend a personalized mix of vitamins and supplements. And its investors included Juxtapose, Goodwater Capital, Tusk Venture Partners, Bullish, and RRE Ventures. They funded the company to the tune of $46 million altogether. Federal officials are investigating a frightening incident during a Southwest Airlines flight that sent the plane into a rolling motion at 32,000 feet and left the jet with significant damage. The incident happened on the 25th of last month in a flight from Phoenix to Oakland, which was carrying 175 passengers and 6 crew members. The incident report indicates the Boeing 737 MAX jet experienced an unusual motion known as a Dutch roll in mid-air. A Dutch roll describes a plane rocking from side to side and changing in yaw, the direction the nose is facing, simultaneously resembling a horizontal figure 8 pattern. It can be particularly nauseating for passengers. The FAA said the pilots were able to regain control of the aircraft, which went on to land safely in Oakland, and no injuries were reported. And a cause of that incident remains under investigation by the FAA, Boeing, and the National Transportation Safety Board. The jet involved, which is less than 2 years old, remains out of service and on the ground. Tempus AI, a healthcare diagnostics company that uses AI to interpret medical tests to help physicians provide more accurate treatment for their patients, rose by as much as 15% at the NASDAQ stock market debut after going public under the ticker symbol TEM. Tempus AI priced 11.1 million shares at $37 a piece at the top of its initial 35 to 37 target range. And the future of Paramount Global now hangs in the balance after Shari Redstone, who controls Paramount through her family's holding company, National Amusements, ended merger talks with Skydance Media. Hollywood summer movie anxieties gave way to joy this weekend with the massive debut of Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2. The animated sequel earned $155 million in ticket sales from 4,440 theaters in the US and Canada. Not only is it the second highest opening weekend in Pixar's 29 years of making films and the second biggest animated opening ever, behind only Incredibles 2 in 2018, it is also the biggest of 2024 and since Barbie. With an estimated $140 million from international showings, Inside Out 2 had a staggering and record-breaking $295 million global start. Apparel retailers are discovering that weight loss is their gain. While blockbuster drugs like Ozempic that lead to significant weight loss have dented demand for diet plans and caused food companies to prepare for people eating less, clothing sellers are finding that millions of slimmed-down Americans want to buy new clothes. With the 4th of July rapidly approaching, inspectors across the country are ramping up with efforts to stop illegal firework use and sale. While there's nothing more American than celebrating Independence Day by shooting off fireworks, the pyrotechnics are heavily regulated from state to state and are not legal everywhere. So please do check before using them. And states that permit a majority of consumer fireworks do include Texas. More teens are trying a special chewing gum or a silicone device called Jazzercise to make their jawlines look more chiseled. A pediatric dentist at the Cohen Children's Medical Center said that some of the younger members of Gen Z are coming in wanting better-looking jawlines. Older kids, not 12 and 13, but 16 and 17, usually girls, not so much boys, interested in their jawlines. Police in White Settlement in Texas are offering their thanks to a customer at a convenience store who noticed an elderly woman was falling victim to scammers. The crooks convinced the elderly woman they were calling from her bank and that she would be arrested if she did not send them $40,000 in Bitcoin. A customer at the convenience store on Cherry Lane called 911 when she saw the woman feeding thousands of dollars in cash into the cryptocurrency ATM. And the White Settlement police officer, of course, quickly arrived on the scene to investigate, and video from his body-worn camera shows him attempting to comfort the woman and confronting the scammers over the video call. The scammers tried to get the officer off the call, but the officer did convince the victim that she was not in any danger of being arrested and to stop feeding money into the Bitcoin ATM. Unfortunately, they say she lost over $23,000 before the transaction was actually disrupted. The Dallas Animal Services and Adoption Center is operating at 155% capacity with 464 dogs. They are now asking for the community's help to find new homes for their pets. Due to such a high capacity of animals, over 300 dogs are sharing kennels. A new ranking of the 250 happiest metropolitan areas in the world has been released, and only one city in the United States is vibing enough to reach gold level status. London-based research firm, they're releasing its annual Happy City Index, and the ranking utilizes 5 factors that researchers say are the most important areas defining urban activities that have a direct impact on happiness, including citizens, governance, environment, economy, and mobility. And this included 250 cities from around the globe. But instead of giving the title of happiest in the world to just one city, the Institute separated cities into 3 categories. Gold cities make up the top 37 cities on the list, followed by 63 silver cities and 150 bronze cities. All told, the list includes 10 U.S. cities, but only one landed among the gold-ranked happiest cities in the world, and that title goes to Minneapolis in Minnesota. When the city's happiness score is taken into account, it ranks as the 18th happiest city in the world overall. And Boston is the second highest ranked U.S. city on the list, but it wasn't quite happy enough to land in golden territory. Beantown is the highest ranked silver city on the list and 38th happiest in the world, and only 2 other U.S. cities placed in the silver category, Baltimore and Washington, D.C. 5 U.S. cities reach bronze level status, including San Francisco, Salt Lake City, Madison in Wisconsin, Pittsburgh, Rochester, New York, and Portland, Oregon. Although it doesn't officially designate just one city as the happiest in the world, the highest scoring city on the list is Aarhus in Denmark, followed by Zurich in Switzerland, Berlin in Germany, Gothenburg in Sweden, and Amsterdam in the Netherlands, rounding out the 5 cities with the highest scores. France's political upheaval has led Paris to lose its spot as Europe's biggest equity market to London, less than 2 years after winning that title from the United Kingdom. President Macron's shock announcement of a snap election sparked a rout that wiped off about $258 billion from the market capitalization of French firms last week, and many shares of all big holders of government debt lost more than 10% each. BJP leader Rajiv Chandrasekhar reviewed and renewed his verbal duel with American businessman Elon Musk over the latter's remarks on electronic voting machines, as he said the electronic devices not connected with any network can be hacked. Reacting to Musk's claim on X that everything can be hacked, the former union minister said a calculator or a toaster cannot be hacked. Tesla, the biggest premium electric company in the world, was founded by Elon Musk. And amid an overall uptick in India's goods exports last month, spice exports have slipped 20% year on year. This comes after Hong Kong and Singapore in April found higher than permissible levels of pesticide ethylene oxide in MDH and Everest shipments. Hyundai's Motors India unit sought regulatory approval for a stock market listing in Mumbai, which could be the nation's biggest and will see the South Korean parent sell a stake of up to 17.5% in the company. The prospectus filed gave no details of the pricing of the IPO or the company's valuation, but sources have said that Hyundai aims to raise around $2.5 to $3 billion at a valuation of up to 30 billion. India's second biggest car maker behind Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai, will not issue new shares in the IPO, which will involve its South Korean parent selling part of its stake in the wholly owned unit to retail and other investors via a so-called offer for sale route. Driven by a resilient domestic economy, buoyant stock market, and growing participation of retail investors, the IPO and follow-on public offer markets the country all set to witness surge in activities, with around 56 companies, including Hyundai Motor India Limited, looking to raise over 90,000 crore rupees. Close to 17 companies have received approval from the Securities and Exchange Board of India for launching IPOs up to this month. And these companies are looking to raise over 11,000 crore rupees. Among them, Asirwad Microfinance, Allied Blenders and Distillers, planning to mobilize nearly 1,500 crore rupees each. Hyundai Motor Company's Indian unit filing for this IPO offering expected to be one of the nation's largest, and the car maker will offer 17.5% or 142.2 million shares of Hyundai Motor India Limited, according to this draft red herring prospectus. India's merchandise exports have risen by 9.1% to $38 billion last month, even as the trade deficit widened to a 7-month high. Interglobe Aviation, the parent company of the no-frills carrier Indigo, said it'll receive a customized compensation from aircraft engine maker Pratt & Whitney's affiliate firm International Aero Engine for grounded aircrafts. And after raising 18,000 crore rupees from the market in April this year, Vodafone Idea Limited said its board has approved a preference share issue to mop up 2,458 crore rupees from Nokia Solutions, Networks India Private Limited, and Ericsson India Private Limited. Online food delivery platform Zomato has said it is in talks with Paytm to acquire the financial technology company's movies and events business. Zomato said while it is in discussions with Paytm, no binding decision has been taken yet. And Zepto aims to diversify its delivery charges as it gears up to raise fresh funds from investors ahead of this public market listing potentially in 2026. Around 1.1 million square feet of retail space in organized retail centers and prominent high streets was leased in the first quarter of this year. Fashion and apparel sector dominating those leasing. Fashion and apparel dominating in the first quarter, contributing 40% of the total leasing volume of 1.1 million square feet. And this surge was led by mid-segment brands, which captured a significant share of that 40%, closely followed by vague segment brands at 38%. And the food and beverage segment contributed to 21% of the leasing activity. Experiential dining brands delivering unique and memorable dining experiences, accounting for an impressive 38% of the F&B segment. Julian Gorman, the head of the Asia Pacific at GSMA, has expressed concerns that Pakistan's recent increase in taxes on mobile phone manufacturing could jeopardize the smartphone for all initiative. And Mr. Gorman highlighted that mobile phone penetration in Pakistan is currently at 40%, a figure that should exceed 70% given the country's substantial youth population. The Ministry of Federal Education in Islamabad has announced that a high-level team from Google will be visiting Pakistan to explore potential collaboration in the education and technology sectors. Peshawar High Court has sought reply from the federal government within a fortnight for a petition seeking complete ban on a popular video sharing application, TikTok, as it had failed to stop uploading blasphemous and indecent material on it. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said that government departments and institutions incurring billions in losses to the nation and the exchequer would be shut down once a committee finished its review of that matter. And the government has highlighted almost a dozen critical risks to next year's budget and medium-term outlook, including higher interest rates, currency depreciation, and greater subsidy requirements, challenging revenue targets, lower than estimated economic growth, unexpected climatic or natural disasters, and continuing poor performance of state-owned entities. Compared to the Go Nawaz Go chants of the federal budget and the ruckus in the Punjab budget, the Sindh budget was passed amid thunderous applause because of PPP's ruling majority. And it is Balochistan set to present a surplus and people-friendly budget on the 22nd of this month. In a few words, the 25 budget for the agricultural sector lacks long-term vision, national priorities, and strategic direction. The absence of defined goals and a coherent strategy to address the sector's pressing issues renders budgetary allocations and financial measures meaningless and ineffectual. Well, we finally have a release date for Barzakh, Fawad Khan and Sanam Saeed's highly anticipated web series for Zee Zindagi. And the series will be available on Zindagi's YouTube channel and Z5 on the 19th of this month. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news for you, but I do have your final segment of the program for today coming up in just a minute. Stay with me right here on Community Radio Networks. All right, this is the final segment of our program for today. And today, ladies and gentlemen, is Monday, the 17th of June, as we get this week started. Let's get you some very interesting stories from the annals of history that happened on the 17th of June. British General Thomas Gage lands his troops on the Charleston Peninsula overlooking Boston and leads them into Breed's Hill, a fortified American position just below Bunker Hill. On today's date in 1775, the Battle of Bunker Hill begins. As the British advanced in columns against the Americans, American Colonel William Prescott reportedly told his men, "Don't one of you fire until you see the whites of their eyes." When the Redcoats were within 40 yards, the Americans let loose with a lethal barrage of musket fire, throwing the British into retreat. After reforming his lines, Gage attacked again with much the same result. And Prescott's men were now low on ammunition, though when Gage led his men up to the hill for a third time, they reached the redoubts and engaged the Americans in hand-to-hand combat, and the outnumbered Americans were forced to retreat. However, by the end of the engagement, the Patriots' gunfire had cut down nearly 1,000 enemy troops, including 92 officers. Of the 370 Patriots who fell, most were struck while in retreat at the Battle of Bunker Hill that began on today's date in 1775. And in 1885, on the 17th of June, the dismantled Statue of Liberty a gift of friendship from the people of France to the people of America, arrives in New York Harbor after being shipped across the Atlantic Ocean in 350 individual pieces packed in more than 200 cases. The copper and iron statue, which was reassembled and dedicated the following year in a ceremony presided over by U.S. President Grover Cleveland, became known around the world as an enduring symbol of freedom and democracy. Intended to commemorate the American Revolution, the abolition of slavery following the U.S. Civil War, and a century of friendship between the U.S. and France, this statue was designed by a French sculptor, Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi, who modeled it after his own mother, with assistance from engineer Gustave Eiffel, who later developed the iconic tower in Paris bearing his name. The statue was initially scheduled to be finished by 1876, the 100th anniversary of America's Declaration of Independence. However, fundraising efforts, which included auctions, a lottery, and boxing matches, took longer than anticipated, both in Europe and the US, where the statue's pedestal was to be financed and constructed. The statue alone cost the French an estimated $250,000, which is more than $5.5 million in today's money. And finally completed in Paris in 1884, the statue, the robed female figure with an uplifted arm holding a torch, reached its new home on Bedloes Island in New York Harbor on today's date in 1885. And after being reassembled, the 450,000-pound statue was officially dedicated in October that year by President Cleveland, who said, "We will not forget that liberty has here made her home, nor shall her chosen altar be neglected." Standing more than 305 feet above the foundation of its pedestal to the top of its torch, the statue, dubbed Liberty Enlightening the World by Bartholdi, was taller than any structure in New York City at that time. And the statue was originally copper-colored, but over the years it underwent a natural color change process called patination that produced its current greenish-blue hue. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the Statue of Liberty. Today, one of America's most famous landmarks. Over the years, it has been the site of political rallies and protests from suffragettes to anti-war activists, and has been featured in numerous movies and countless photographs, and has received millions of visitors from around the globe. The Statue of Liberty arrived in New York Harbor on today's date in 1885. With Paris fallen and the German conquest of France reaching its conclusion, Marshal Henri Pétain replaces Paul Reynaud as Prime Minister and announces his intention to sign an armistice with the Nazis. The next day, French General Charles de Gaulle, not very well known even to the French, made a broadcast to France from England, urging his countrymen to continue the fight against Germany. A military hero during World War I, Pétain was appointed Vice Premier of France in May 1940 to boost the morale in a country crumbling under the forces of the Nazi invasion. Instead, he arranged an armistice with the Nazis. This armistice was signed by the French and went into effect, and more than half of France was occupied by the Germans. And in July, Pétain took office as Chief of State at Vichy, a city in unoccupied France. And the Vichy government collaborated with the Nazis, and French citizens suffered on both sides of the divided nation. It was in 1942 that Pierre Laval, an opportunistic French fascist and dutiful Nazi collaborator who won the trust of Adolf Hitler and the elderly Pétain, became merely a figurehead in the Vichy regime. So it was France signaling its intention to surrender to the Nazis on today's date in the year 1940. Laval, of course, was executed in 1945, but provincial French leader Charles de Gaulle commuted Pétain's sentence to life imprisonment, where he died on the Isle d'Yeu of France in 1951. The Soviet Union orders an entire armored division of its troops into East Berlin to crush a rebellion by East German workers and anti-government protesters. The Soviet assault set a precedent for later interventions into Hungary in 1956 and Czechoslovakia in 1968. The riots in East Berlin began among construction workers who took to the streets on the 16th of June in 1955 to protest an increase in work schedules by the communist government of East Germany, but by the next day the crowd of disgruntled workers and other anti-government dissidents had grown to between 30,000 and 50,000. The Soviets crushed these anti-government riots in East Berlin on today's date in 1953. In the early morning of June the 17th in 1972, 5 men are arrested for breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate, an office hotel apartment complex in Washington, D.C. In their possession were burglary tools, cameras and film, and 3 pen-sized tear gas guns. At the scene of the crime and in rooms the men rented at the Watergate, sophisticated electronic bugging equipment was found. 3 of the men were Cuban exiles, 1 was a Cuban American, and the 5th was James McCord Jr., a former CIA agent. That day, the suspects who said they were anti-communists were charged with felonious burglary and possession of implements of crime. The Watergate burglars were arrested on today's date in 1972. Viewers across the nation are glued to their television screens on the 17th of June in the year 1994. Watching as a fleet of black and white police cars pursues a white Ford Bronco along Interstate 405 in Los Angeles, California. And inside that Bronco is Orenthal James, O.J. Simpson, a former professional football player, actor, and sports commentator, whom police suspected of involvement in the recent murders of his former wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ronald Goldman. And their bodies were found outside her home in the exclusive Los Angeles neighborhood of Brentwood shortly after midnight on the 13th of June. Bloodstains matching Simpson's blood type were found at the crime scene, and the star had become the focus of the Los Angeles Police Department investigation by that morning of the 17th of June. And when police arrived to arrest him at the home of his friend and lawyer, Robert Kardashian, they found that he had slipped out the back door with his former colleague and Buffalo Bills teammate Al Cowlings. The 2 men had then driven off in Cowlings' white Ford Bronco. After a news conference in which his lawyer, Robert Shapiro, announced that he was distraught and might attempt suicide, the LAPD officially declared the former football star a fugitive. And around 7 o'clock that evening, police located the white Bronco by tracing calls from his cellular phone. O.J. Simpson was reported to be in the backseat of the vehicle holding a gun to his head. With news helicopters following the slow chase from above and cameras broadcasting the dramatic event live to millions of astonished viewers, vehicles from the LAPD and California Highway Patrol pursued that Bronco for about an hour as it traveled at some 35 miles per hour along I-405, actually. Finally, after about an hour, the Bronco pulled into the driveway of Simpson's Brentwood home. He emerged from the car at about 9 o'clock and was immediately arrested and booked on double murder charges. That was the trial that followed gripped the nation, inspiring unprecedented media scrutiny along with heated debates about racial discrimination on the part of the police. And though a jury acquitted him of murder charges in 1995, a separate civil trial in 1997 found him liable for the deaths and ordered him to pay $33.5 million in damages to the Brown and Goldman families. Simpson ran into legal problems again in 2007 when he was arrested for breaking into a Las Vegas hotel room and taking sports memorabilia, which he claimed had been stolen from him at gunpoint. In 2008, he was found guilty of 12 charges related to that incident, including armed robbery and kidnapping, and sentenced to 33 years in prison. Released from prison in 2017, died of cancer in 2024. But it was O.J. Simpson that led the LA police on a low-speed chase behind that Bronco on the 17th of June in 1994. And it was on the evening of the 17th of June in 2015, a mass shooter took the lives of 9 African-American people at a Bible study at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina. The massacre at this historic black church deeply shook a nation already jaded by frequent gun violence and heralded a new chapter of violent white nationalism in America. It was and for next several years, which would be marked by more horrific white nationalist violence in America, including the murder of Heather Heyer during a right-wing rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017, and a 2018 shooting at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life synagogue that claimed 11 lives. But it was the Charleston church shooting on today's date in 2015. Some stories from the annals of history that I thought I'd share with you for today. They all happened on today's date, which is the 17th of June. I have huge thanks going out to our supporters of community radio networks. Big thanks going out to Discount Power, also to Houston EB5, the Ahluwalia Law Offices, the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force, Kinzer Law, Maikolachi, also to Ruchi Palace by Maikolachi, and Shri Vimal, Vimal's Venue, as well as Mystic Mandala and Flash Brush Productions. We do have an International Day of Yoga, this seminar called Burnout to Balance, a day filled with activities for the body, mind, and soul that is happening on this week on the 22nd from 8 to 4 at the Collin College Conference Center on Wade Boulevard, and that is in Frisco. yogaforunity.com. 4 is the digit 4. yogaforunity.com. And this Sunday, the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial of North Texas, in partnership with the Consulate General of India, is inviting you to the International Day of Yoga, Yoga for Humanity. This is going to be at the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Plaza in Irving from 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning this Sunday, and we hope you all will join us. The chief guest is going to be the Honorable D.C. Manjunath, the Consul General of India in Houston. Dallas Symphony Orchestra, as a special thanks for the community's support, is proud to present a free concert featuring the incredible talent of Dallas natives, King's Return, happening next weekend, Saturday, the 29th of June at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It is free for the public, and this is to thank everybody for their support of the DSO, the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. So 2 o'clock in the afternoon, this free concert at the Morton Meyerson Center. We do have on the 29th some other events happening. Shankar Ehsan Loy will be in town. 24/7 entertainment and Mera Box Office Entertainment, along with Charisma Dreams Entertainment, presents the legendary trio of Shankar Ehsan Loy. Shankar Mahadevan, Ehsan Nurani, and Loy Mendonça are getting ready to set the stage on fire with their electrifying music and soul-stirring melodies on the 29th of this month. Arguably India's most successful and popular music trio, Shankar Ehsan Loy became a nationwide sensation after they composed the chartbusters of the 2000 movie called Dil Chahta Hai, and they have since composed music for over 50 soundtracks in 5 languages: Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Marathi, and English also. And that is Kal Ho Na Ho, live in concert, Shankar Ehsan Loy at the Toyota Music Factory, and that is on Saturday, the 29th of June. Also on Saturday, the 29th of June, Nan's Vision is presenting Dallas's Glamorous Night with Shilpa Shetty on the 29th of June at the Grandian Event Center on Parkwood Boulevard in Frisco. I'm going to give you a number. If you'd like more information on this event, you can call 469-305-6836. 469-305-6836. As we continue to follow the 2020 World Cup 2024 games, we do have another one that will be happening in July, and that is the 2024 Texas Super Kings schedule, opening their season against the LA Knight Riders on the 5th of July at 7:30 at the Grand Prairie Stadium. Salim Suleiman will be in town on the 3rd of July, so this is the long 4th of July weekend we are talking about. And Ellen DeGeneres will be in Dallas on the 10th of July. We do have a leadership workshop for youth on the 12th and 13th of July, and that is being brought to you by the Radha Krishna Temple in Allen. There are some amazing speakers at this conference, and you can discover your true calling and the life purpose as you develop communication, technology, and entrepreneurship skills. You can become inspired by leadership role models in preparation for college or your first job. And this event is happening on the 13th of July, a networking event and a dinner on Saturday, the 13th of July. On the 14th of July, Rohit Sharma, one of the modern greats of the game, opening his cricket academy in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It is going to be on Sunday, the 14th of July, and we have this hitman coming to Texas. Now, for those of you who'd like more information, please call Shalu, and her number is 201-245-6299. Crick Kingdom Cricket Academy by Rohit Sharma, all set to make its grand debut in Dallas, and that will be on the 14th of July. 19th, 20th, and 21st are going to be the Carom Grandmasters Tournament. And on the 8th of August, we have 2024 North Texas Job Fair that is going to be hosted by Beth Van Dyne, the U.S. Congresswoman, in partnership with the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce. It's going to be at the Texas Rangers Stadium on the 8th of August. This is the North Texas Job Fair, and will be taking place on the 8th of August. Please do go ahead and mark Yadein for the 10th of August, and that is the songs of Kishore Kumar, Lata Mangeshkar, and Muhammad Rafi at the Grand Center in Plano. August the 22nd, we do have the Chamber bringing you a Wellness and Workplace conference, with the keynote speaker Nimesh Javeri, the Executive Vice President and Chief Impact Officer at McKesson. On the 31st of August, we have Anand Bazaar in celebration of India's independence coming up for you at the Frisco Rough Riders, and you can always get more information as it becomes available on the India Association's website, which is iant.org. Brahma Kumari's sister Shivani is coming to Dallas on Sunday, the 8th of September from 2 to 4 in the afternoon at the Credit Union of Texas Event Center in Allen. And you can join the Brahma Kumaris in welcoming Sister Shivani, a globally renowned spiritual teacher and motivational speaker. She guides us with ancient wisdom to bring hope and clarity in times of confusion and chaos. 13th, 14th, and 15th, Mughal-e-Azam, that Broadway-style show that you all saw last year, will be here in Dallas. It's going to be at the Dallas Music Hall in Fair Park, 13th, 14th, and 15th of September. Thank you very much for listening in, and I hope I'm going to get you, I got you enough help as well as information to get this week started for you. It is Monday, the 17th of June, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is my show for today. For those of you who would like to reach me directly, my number is 214-675-1754.